How I chose adoption was reading a letter off of a blog, actually. My sister, who was good friends with the adopted mother, but before we chose them at the time, she contacted her and asked her if one of the birth aunt's siblings from her the two adopted boys could write a letter saying how they felt about adoption. And so my birth daughter's oldest brother, his birth mom's sister, wrote a letter and posted it on Amanda's blog, and I read it, and I went downstairs and told my parents that adoption is what I need to do and it's what's best for the child. And so the next day was a Wednesday, and it was birth mother group at LDS Family Services, and that's when I told my caseworker I'm doing adoption.
It's interesting. We talk about just that part of it, but Lindy was adamant when she first told us that she wanted to parent this baby, and my husband and I were not excited about that, and we had a 4-week period of time where didn't matter what we said to show her to try and convince her that placing the baby for adoption was a better choice. Didn't matter what we said, and we were not open to her keeping the baby. She was not open to placing the baby. And one day I just said, I'm going to see the counselor. We had a counselor for another traumatic experience that happened in our lives, and I thought, I'm going to the counselor, will you come? And she said no. And so I went anyway. I wanted her to go, and I thought, he'll tell her, this is the right thing to do. This is what you need to do. But that's not what happened. He told me, he said, you're doing a really good imitation of Satan. I said, what? And he said, yes, this is, that was the plan, is that you would come to this earth and you would always make the right choice and you would always do the right thing. And I had to stop and think, oh my goodness, he's absolutely correct. And so I had to go home and humble myself and say, Lindy, I'll never say another word about it if you'll do some things. But you need to figure out how you're going to take care of the baby, how you're going to pay for the baby, what kind of a job are you going to get, because you don't have any education. And you can't teach a baby what you don't know. And so you need an education. And of course we just prayed that she'd make the right decision, but we were prepared if she made the decision to parent the baby, and we knew that we would have to accept that, and that somehow we would deal with that as well. But that is when she got a phone call in the middle of the night from the birth father, and he was pretty ugly about some things, and so she made that decision on her own, and I felt pretty stupid afterwards that I had made such an issue of it, and that we'd gone for 4 weeks not having a good feeling between us.
That's cool. After I found out I was pregnant, the day I found out, it was pretty shocking, but probably within a couple hours, I just had this feeling, this child's not mine. And, of course I didn't know how it was to be pregnant and have a child that feels like it's yours, but I just felt like this child's not mine. And I didn't know tons about adoption other than one of my friends was adopted. That's all I knew. So I went to LDS Family Services and a place called Pregnancy Care Center. And at Pregnancy Care Center, they had me look into adoption, parenting, and just the different aspects, and like in detail, I had to fill out books and everything. And I was in the middle of nursing school at that point. And so I thought, okay, yeah, I have enough money. I have, I'm starting in my career. I can raise this child. But I still had this gut feeling like, no, the child is not yours. But by the time I told my parents, so a few months later, I was pretty determined that even though maybe I wasn't 100% like, yes, I will, I probably was 99% that yes, that's what I'm doing and that's what's best for the child. And so, yeah, when I told them, I felt like I was pretty adamant that that's what I was going to do.
My concern was more that probably I wish she would have told us sooner so we could have helped her sooner with this problem or this difficulty. Sometimes girls feel like they're in it by themselves, and they're not. Parents, family, friends are there to help them. So I would say, in retrospect, just talk about it earlier, get it figured out with those that would be helpful and safe to go and confront and give this information to, so that they can have some help.